Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to this vlog. So we're going to be diving into my lower body session. It's a hamstring dominant session, but within that session I have the leg press. The leg press can be a fantastic quad builder. Unfortunately, many people abuse the leg press and don't use it appropriately, and also a lot of leg press just aren't built that great. So I'm going to take you through how I get the most out of my leg press and give you some tips about how you can maximize how you can use your leg press for quad growth. I think you're going to really enjoy this one, so we'll get straight into it. The session that I do today is a hamstring focus session. I've actually already done lateral raises and leg curls before coming into this movement. I like to pre-fatigue my hamstrings before a hip hinge, just because I find whatever I can do to take away the glutes will help me, because I do find my glutes tend to like to take over movements. On this is actually a new hip hinge for me, where I'm using the belt squat, which I have found to be incredibly effective. I come as low as I can whilst keeping my hips high and moving back, and my knees relatively straight whilst getting a deep stretch on the hamstrings. And once I've got that deepest stretch on the hamstrings, I pause and then I come back up. So this has been fantastic for me, and we will get to the leg press a little bit later. So guys, we're going to get into the leg press tips. That's probably why you're here, right? So the first one's footwear. So you can see I'm taking these off and I'm putting my squat shoes on. And in my squat shoe, I even have another insert, which is from the Metcons, which you can see there too, is a heel raise. So there's an extra heel raise. And really that's what we're looking for from the footwear, is to have a hard-soled shoe, but also with that heel lift. That's just going to give us a little bit more ankle mobility, which is probably going to allow us to come deeper within the leg press. Next up is foot position. So you can see here, there's many different foot positions you can go with. You don't want your heels lifting off, as I'm demonstrating there. If that means you have to go a bit higher or a bit wider, you can angle your toes more forward or more out. Have a play with it. See what allows you to get the best depth whilst keeping your heels fully down and planted on the foot plate. Now you're going to see here me kind of warming up and messing around a little bit with my foot position, because don't be afraid to take a bit of time, because it does take a little bit of time to kind of get your feet settled. And in fact, you'll see with my sets, my first set, my heel was raising on my right side throughout the entire set. And I think a little bit of a heel rise like that is okay. You just ideally want your full foot down. And on my second set, I corrected it and made sure my feet were a little bit higher. But that's your first real couple of tips, is footwear, get something with a heel lift, and then have a play around with your foot position, trying to get them as low as possible. But then you can play around with that as well, and your stance and the angle that they're pointing in or out. Don't be afraid to play around. So my next tip is seat position. So most leg press, you can vary the seat position on the back there. Mine's actually locked in, and thankfully it's in a pretty decent place where it's quite reclined. And that's the tip. You want it as reclined as possible, because that's going to open up the range of motion for your hips. You don't want to be like lying flat on the ground, but almost as close to that is going to open up more range of motion for the hips, so you can get even deeper on your leg press. And then the other tip is one actually that I've already shown a couple of times now, is with the yoga blocks. By having those yoga blocks there, it can, one, actually allow you to get more range of motion because you don't hit the pins as soon potentially by having them behind your lower back, but also by having them below my lower back, it's helping my low back not round as much, and so I can come down deeper without that low back rounding, which is probably not wanted in most situations. So my next tip I've kind of already covered, and that is range of motion. So go as low as you can whilst not rounding at the lower back and keeping full foot contact as best you can. If there's a tiny bit of lower back rounding, there's a little bit of heel raise, it's probably not the end of the world, especially if it doesn't feel painful or discomfort is not involved, but you basically want to avoid those things if possible. My next tip is going to be tempo. As you can see here, you want to standardize your tempo. You can see my tempo is standardized, and I think it makes sense to really nicely control the eccentric down, and in most cases, pause for a moment at the bottom. You don't need a really long pause. You can pause for just a moment, but getting in that really stretched position right at the bottom and then really powerfully coming up works incredibly well. So we put you in a position to really get a great range of motion by having a play with your foot position, by having a heel raise, by making sure the seat is nice and reclined, potentially putting something behind your lower back. So now you're coming as low as you can whilst keeping your low back on the pad, and then making sure that your feet keep full contact. Now, you can also help yourself with range of motion by a few cues that might help you out. So one of those is thinking knees to armpits and thinking heels to your butt. Those two cues can really help open up your hips and allow you to get that extra bit of range of motion and big stretch across the quad. My final tip for now is you can push harder than you think. You're going to see me here finish at about a 3 to 4 RER. This is my 3 to 4 RER. Some of you might be thinking that looks like I have less than a tank, but I have plenty. So after I've done a couple of sets on the leg press, which by the way were all taken, and everything in this session is pretty much taken to 3 to 4 reps in reserve, I go on to leg extensions to finish off the quads, and I do a couple of sets here, and then after my final set you'll see I'll move into some sissy squats to get some real lengthened overload across the quads to finish them off. And that's that. Hopefully you guys have taken something away from today's vlog. As always, give me a comment, give me a like, give me a subscribe. Let me know kind of what your thoughts are. And if you are struggling with your technique and how to get the best stimulus from certain movements and you're frustrated with that,
Know that at Revive Stronger, with our online coaching, technique and form video feedback is part of our package. We coach you through everything. If you need help with any part of your training nutrition, we are here to help and guide you. We're personal trainers. We are going to look at everything. We're just not going to leave you be on a training program and tell you to do certain reps and sets. We're going to be wanting to see how you're performing in the gym. So if you are struggling with things, know we have online coaching. You can get a consultation with one of the coaches here. So that'll be linked in the description. But as always, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm going to chow down on this 150 grams of Frosties, along with a couple of scoops from Rainbow Cookie CMP Whey. And yeah, Frosties goes down real easy, which is nice at the moment. Cheers, guys. Catch you in the next one.